All right, how's everybody doing this evening? Good. Awesome. All right. Thanks everyone for taking the time to come to this event. My name is Lan Wang. For those who I have not met, I want to do a brief introduction of myself and introduce Hitech Advisor a little bit. And then we'll have Haresh and our esteemed panelists getting to this evening's topic. I joined Hitech Advisor and Haresh's team about a year ago after a couple decades traveling the world, working for multinational companies. So I joined to expand Hitech Advisor's practice into customer experience and AI, as well as expand into a strategy and management consulting space. Okay. When Haresh started Hitech Advisor about 10 years ago, he founded the company based on two cornerstones, right? Empathy and trust. Throughout the 10 years, I think Hitech Advisor has grown based on those two principles. Empathy came naturally because Haresh, myself, and the entire team, we've all walked in the shoes of our clients, our customers. And trust is very, very important to all of us, especially for a consulting firm. Trust is earned on a daily basis with every engagement with every client. So I'm actually very proud to say that Hitech Advisor is a boutique consultancy that's based in Seattle, but it punches way above our weight class. Okay? So we've through the on the slide you see that we have the fortune of working for and working with a lot of the global brands, well-trusted multinational brands over the years. And most recently, we have expanded our practice into Asia Pacific, Middle East, as well as Europe. So we're advising our latest client around AI data center, right, from site location selections all the way to global expansion strategy for those clients. So it is a journey, and it's a journey with a lot of clients, with a lot of colleagues that are in this room this evening. So we put on these events on a quarterly basis, and with the sponsorship from JP Chase, private bankers. So I want to give a shout out to David Kurtman, who's here for our event. All right. So one last thing about Hitech Advisor. We see ourselves as market maker for opportunity and talent. So we solve business problems, meaningful business problems, with people who find them meaningful to solve. So, for this evening, if you are either a talent looking for opportunities or, have opportunities in your organizations, so keep us in mind. Come talk to us after the event. All right, without further ado, Haresh.
Thank you. Thank you, Len. And thanks, everybody, again, for being here. I'm going to invite the panelists, wherever you may be, to come up and take your seats. No particular order. I guess as we get situated, just very brief history. Where did David go? Oh, there he is. I believe this is event number 12 in 3 years. So let's give David and JP Morgan team a round of applause. Been very supportive. I think when we did our first event, ChatGPT was maybe 6 months old, right? And so we had a little cartoon in the invite that went out. The title of the event was The Impact of AI on Business and the World. And then in the cartoon, some exec asks, hey, do we know what the impact of AI is on our business? And then the cartoon had a little, what do they call it, balloon. It said, oh, let me ask ChatGPT. Right? So how many of you use ChatGPT? Wow. How many of you can get your job done today without using an LLM? Wow. Very happy to have all the panelists here. These are leaders in the domain of e-commerce and shopping, right? So how about shopping? I'm assuming all of us shop in person, online, etc., right? So anybody use agents yet? A little scary. A little scary. So obviously, how many of you use search when you're shopping? All of us, I'm guessing, right? And then how about, if not agents, chatbots? Yeah. And what's that experience like? Mixed or better? Okay, okay. So you remember the title of the event is Shopping 2030, Beyond Search, Beyond Chatbots. So just to set a little bit of context, I think neither search nor chatbots are going to go away anytime soon, I'm guessing, and I'd love to have somebody contradict me, right? But new things are coming, right? Agentic shopping maybe is the holy grail, I'm not sure. So that's going to be the subject of today's Q&A with the panelists. So format's very similar to what we've been doing in the past, right? We'll do about an hour-ish of Q&A amongst the panelists based on what we've prepared or roughly prepared, and then we'll have some Q&As at the end with all of you. And then we have a bonus feature. We actually have somebody who's working on the shopping problem itself as a startup. So we're going to get a little primer as far as what they're doing and how they're approaching the problem. So with that, we can get started. So I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and your organization and so on. So I'll just go in no particular order. So Maria, please start us off.
All right. Maria Zarodovich. I'm at Intel. I'm the General Manager of Consumer Industries. Pleased to be here. So what does this mean and why is Intel here? I always get that. So my organization is very focused on working across the globe with the ODM and equipment manufacturers on building any type of device that is going into a physical retail, hospitality, convenience, grocer, retail banking, stadium space. Anything from a point of sale register to a self-checkout, to a kiosk, to signage, ATM machine, whatever that type of device is that goes into a physical instance. My team is working across the globe to create that next gen device, including the convergence of what that form factor is going to look like. And what's awesome is we're looking out into the future about how will AI and the AI applications change the landscape of the compute that is required within those devices, along with compute on the edge. And retailers are getting really smart about where do they actually want to place that compute and how do they use it as a lever for making smarter business decisions. So that's where my organization sits today. I have been in retail for over 20 years before I moved into tech. From retail, went to software cloud, and then now over to the silicon side.
Thank you. I'm going to ask to add one more question. It can't be your own site if you have one. What's your favorite store and what's your favorite site to shop at today?
Like putting me on the spot. like asking for you're like, who's your favorite child? Like, especially for someone from retail.
I think in this one, a lot of people hate all the children.
No. I mean, they're growing, right? They're maturing. We have to help them out. Gosh. Ugh. You know what? Right now, my biggest thing with my kids is all about reuse, repurposing, reuse, recycle clothing. And so I find these platforms pretty fascinating. And so lots of improvement to be made, but I think the business model is really interesting how it evolves and how people are going to utilize that, and I especially see the younger generation. So that's my way of getting out of that question. Naming someone.
You should check out Bywander.
Okay, I will.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, you stole mine actually, because I was going to say Rent the Runway. I absolutely adore Rent the Runway. The one thing that I can't stand about it though, and that I think we're going to see a massive shift in the future with CX, is I hate filtering. Now that I work at Microsoft, and so I'm consistently using AI across every single part of my workday and workflows. And so when I get off that site, I have found that it's been jarring to have to do things like filter 14 different ways in order for me to get what I want. And that's been something I've noticed as a consumer myself, like, wow, this shift is really happening. What I do is I'm a global strategy for art, retail, and consumer goods specifically, and I focus on marketing and agentic commerce and CX.
Thank you.
Hi, I am Rucha Joshi, and I lead product for customer-facing AI at Albertsons, where I am building shopping assistants for our customers, meeting them wherever they are, be it our stores, our app, it could be on ChatGPT, Gemini, or bring your own agent. Like we're trying to build, I'm building across all of these. I've spent about 15 years at the intersection of retail and AI. Started off as a software engineer, then moved into product, building and shipping products across the customer's shopping journey. Experimentation at Macy's, product discovery, personalization and search at Levi's, product selection and product decisioning at Amazon, and now grocery. I feel like this cross-industry journey has given me a rare vantage point of how customers shop, how they plan, how they decide before they make a purchase, and how it changes across all of these different retail contexts and very different contexts that we have today. So very excited to be talking about agentic shopping today.
Thank you.
And I am going to go with a contrarian view that I do not have a favorite site right now for shopping because everything, according to me, is broken, and we got to fix it with agentic shopping.
What about a store of any sort?
Well, I have to say Safeway because I work there, but I think. Like everything has its purpose. There isn't like one that's better than the other right now in my mind. There's always like something that my mind shifts to, whatever is in the flavor of the moment. I am doing a little bit of home renovations right now, so I'm gonna say Home Depot is doing a good job.
All right, Srinivas.
Hi, I'm Srinivas. I'm working as a CTO for Bywander. At Bywander, what we do is we buy the refund goods from major retailers like Amazon, Costco, Target, anybody who's like, it's a return. Instead of getting them into landfills, we get them, we reprocess them in a warehouse, identify the product, condition of the product, give all the information to the user, and put it in our marketplace for auction. So starting $1. Once the auction is closed, we only offer to pick up at the store, and they have 7 days to return if they are not satisfied with the condition or any other, no questions asked. We started our company 2 years ago at Spokane. We expanded that to 5 different stores. Recently, we pretty close to Series A. We are going to expand like further into rest of the United States. prior to working in Bywander, so worked in Zillow as a startup for 16 years. That's when I met Haresh. So it's kind of, yeah, I know him for almost like 20 years. There, like, and I have done data, product, data, analytics, pretty much everything. So then after that, I ended up spending in a startup called Discovery.ai, where we build AI solutions for e-commerce, for personalization, shopping bot, then which got acquired, and then that's when I came to Bywander. I think the question on the what is my favorite shopping site, is that, I mean, typically I don't shop. My wife shops for me. But I think her favorite store right now is Temu. I think it's amazing on how well they gamify their shopping, and then how they bring users back and then stick them to the website and buy them more. I mean, I think they done like amazing job. Apart from the variety of products and the discounts that they make it available, I think they made it really fun on shopping.
Excellent. So thank you. Have you shopped on your own site?
We love our shopping. Like we should. If you haven't, we have one in Kent. But I'm from Bay Area, so I have to go to Sacramento from Bay Area. So kind of my shopping is limited. But definitely, yes, we eat our dog food, so I do shop.
I see. We discussed a few points when we were preparing for the panel. I guess a little bit on the heavier side, now that we know what favorite shopping platforms and places are for some of us. One of the things that came up multiple times is the concept of trust, right? In many ways. One is basics, like if I put in my credit card, is that safe, right, on a platform, et cetera. The other is, as you move towards agentic shopping, or you give more agency or autonomy to the platform, right? There's a trust question of kind of around personalization. Does it know what I want or my requirements or what I prefer, maybe the brands, the quality, or et cetera, right? And so maybe we'll start with groceries, Rucha. How is personalization and this trust building or kind of ownership building evolving in the age of AI and with technology in general?
I think personalization is the absolute foundation of trust for AI. You don't get too many chances to get it right with the customer, especially with AI. Customers will try your experiences once or twice, and if you're not able to actually get it right that time, bringing them back to those experiences is harder than ever. So personalization is absolutely critical. But with AI now getting more signals about what the customer wants, what their intent is, and that long-term memory that we can have about them and bring it into the context of shopping is like never before. So both in terms of being able to capture these signals and then use them effectively are possible with AI right now, and important to get right if any of your strategy has to be successful. Especially with grocery, because grocery is a repurchase use case for the most part. Like, how many of you go and buy different brands of milk every week? It's probably the same things that you continue to buy over and over again every week. And knowing what your purchase patterns are, and then using that to create any level of automation is that's where we are going, and I think that's proving to be successful so far.
Others?
It's interesting what you said about personalization being absolutely foundational, and below that, the data. I think that's where a lot of us are struggling quite a bit. Across retail and consumer goods in general, is we have always had silos of data, And in order for us to get the advantages of all of the unstructured and structured data and the new signals that are coming in and the social signals that are coming in, and even, we were talking earlier about brand agents that exist on someone's website and having that, dialogue. People don't talk the same way to a brand as they search, obviously. So being able to grab at that and being able to use that to further personalize, communications with the customer, all of that seems to be possible. And so the number one use case that I'm seeing when talking to customers in retail and consumer goods, at least, is a safe way to get started and understand where your data's at is through consumer insights and understanding where data needs to live and building AI on top of that in order to be more personalized. Because you're right, you only get one chance with the customer. So there's a lot of capturing that can be done now. I agree with that, and I totally, I think that's where we're going to see a lot of headway.
So I guess talking about data and also I guess personalization, but how much of the limitations, or Rucha, if you were to say the bottlenecks or the constraints towards accelerating progress, how much of that is like nuts and bolts of integrating the right data systems versus actually having the right algorithms or the right technology to take that data and then creating the personalized solutions for the users?
I think the algorithms are no good without the data. The context is king in any situation. I think we are fortunate at Albertsons to have been putting in the work on getting our data together, not just today after ChatGPT was launched, but for many years. So we have a good foundation of data. LLMs bring some level of world knowledge, but then being able to ground it in your customers' data and the data that you have around your own products helps harness its power in a more deterministic way, I would want to say, and that's important. So having data, it's paramount to have your data clean. If you don't have data, there's still opportunities, because having conversational AI solutions today, you can actually get the customer to tell you a lot more than what your data might have, like Michelle was saying. It's easier to have conversations with them and start fresh, collect that data over the conversation, and then start using it as well. So there's both ways that this can be tackled.
I guess both of you can.
Yeah, I think I want to add, the one advantage with this conversational agents is when we shop something, usually you don't go and then at least say, oh, I'm going to vacation, right? It's where you're going. So depending on that, you are already making decisions what you want to buy. So now, just adding that conversation, right? Because you go to ChatGPT, then you say, I'm going to Hawaii, and this is the places that I'm going, and these are the things that I wanted to do. So now it knows what kind of outfits that it might fit, or what kind of accessories that you wanted to buy, right? So that context, which we were, in order to get that context, what the user might be interested, we had to churn through millions of rows, right? Definitely, right? Millions of rows, especially at Zillow, we have done that for real estate. So now, I think that went down with the conversational event, very small. And definitely, I agree with Rucha, you still need, okay, what is the user segmentation, what the user is buying, what is their trends. Adding these two things, I think it makes much more powerful for users, and also the business and what kind of things that we can recommend them.
Your thoughts?
I think I would say for personalization, I think AI is enabling a new level of what personalization can actually look like. I think for a long time we were trying to pull in different data that makes sense for the shopper within a very linear framework of shopping. And I think as AI has entered with Gen AI being a much more creative and easier interface, I think that it starts to move it out of a linear shopping and into a much more circular opportunity. And so I think that in itself, with how it serves information and can interact, will that in itself add a new layer of personalization. From a trust perspective, I think that trust is going to be one of the biggest inhibitors to the speed of adoption on AI. Because if you think about it, at an individual level as a shopper, we have to trust the output that comes back to us and trust the information I'm going to put into the system. Where is it taking it, and who sees it, who's going to use it, and where does it flow to, and how does it come back to me? Think about that in an organizational context when you're trying to put in new applications using AI with your customers. Even within an organization that is truly utilizing AI as a capability, that means the organization trusts the output so much so that it will build its work functions around the output of those models, and use agentic for those next actions and just let it flow through the system. That's the ultimate place where we need to go. So I think we have, there's definitely steps in front of us to get to that point. But I think those are the things that we're trying to figure out. Feasibility, to me, with the data sets and stuff, I think we'll get there. Like, it's all feasible. It's how, we're learning, we're putting it together. I think it's the people and the process pieces that are going to be really challenging, because we've built our organizations around certain linear processes or technology around it, and AI can completely unbundle that. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
So in the olden days, I don't know if you go back to Mr. Walton and the people that did federated stores and so on, which seems many decades or centuries ago. But there was a framework, right, of price, selection, and convenience, right? So anybody disagree that those will continue to be the pillars for commerce or retail?
It's worked for Amazon for a long time.
I think that still stands. I mean, that's retail at the heart of it. Yeah.
So that'll be true, right? Regardless of all the other innovations that come on top of things, right?
I think if anything, it'll become more important, because I feel like agents are going to make decisions for you. And depending on what your focus in life is, like if it's price sensitivity or it's brand affinity, like you tell your agent what you want from your shopping experience, and then the agent's going to go and look for all of these options across different sites or brands, and then make those choices for you. So making your price, value, convenience, and brand offerings machine readable is going to become more important, because agents don't have emotions, at least today, and they're going to make decisions based on what you've told them and what's actually machine readable. So it's going to become more important.
And I think that's part of the distinction on personalization, where it was brands who've been trying to personalize and what they serve up. But now we're at a point where I, as the consumer, actually can create my own agent with the things that I want, and to go out and search for it, not the brand. But the brand has to make it, serve it up where it can be searched, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to add a layer of complexity to that, it's actually not the customer necessarily deciding the journey or the brands, because you have agents that are serving up 3 to 5 different options for you. And the reason that you use that LLM is so that you wouldn't have to, run through a myriad of selections or hundreds of selections. And so I think there's also a big question in personalization around, do you consider an agent a customer? And how would you reconstruct or redesign your strategies, as you were saying, on the internal side, so that you're reaching your customers, whether or not they're agents or people?
And so let's take that one a little bit further. So where we're talking about kind of redesigning the way that we run our business. So what is, on the table now is advertising, ad spend, because typically you would know how to get your brand in a typical search. And is it painful? In a typical search, right? To get your name at the top for the search. But now if we go into a mode where, shopping is through an agent or other means, they don't have that, brand doesn't have that control yet. There is not a mechanism yet. and what will be served up about a brand. And I think that's now on the table that people are trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think it's like, I don't know if we remember SEO, right? Like, they said, oh, the SEO is the big thing. I think now it's going to be, how do we optimize our content, our brand information, so that agents can make that decision for them? How do we influence the agents rather than people or the search engine algorithm? So I think it's super important for all the brands and e-commerce business to be hyper aware of, okay, so what is the strategy to be showing up to an agent and be appealing to an agent so that it shows up in their searches? And then I think that becomes the next strategy. We are already seeing that right now, right? A kind of AEO, so kind of updating the content so that when you're actually asking the chat GPT, so you're actually seeing like, oh, how do I we can influence the chat GPT based on the AEO information that we are providing on the website.
I guess to maybe take that a little bit further. So in the quaint days of SEO, it was possible to kind of speculate or guess what the search engine was what its criteria was to optimize, right? And then you could put that content out there accordingly. Now, with the kind of lack of interpretability in the engines, it's not clear to me what content I need to put out there, right, to actually get on the results list or get into a chat result of the users, right? So there was a time when Google and I think Facebook is still doing it, and then I think ChatGPT is doing it, where they're saying we have the user. We already know they're searching for something here, or they're prompting me. Why don't I just close the transaction right here? But you don't need to go to a retailer, right? And so in the past, they tried that. And then I think Google Checkout, and there were a few other platforms that tried this, and with not very good results, right? So the larger question is there a purpose that a retailer will still serve? Or are we just going to tell ChatGPT or Gemini, I need 5 pounds of potatoes, or you talk to my fridge, do what you need to do, right? And then the traditional retailers completely get disintermediated. And so this is probably a loaded or a big question. Because you don't know how to necessarily optimize being in the top prompt results, and the engines can really, really control that, right? So there are risks to the retailers that they won't actually they won't have control over their brand, right? Who sees my brand? So does this question make sense? So how do I manage this as a retailer or as a platform?
I think it's a pretty loaded question, right? So I don't have a silver bullet on this one, because it's similar to when we started with SEO. It got similar challenge. I didn't know what I'm doing at the time. We did a lot of experimentation, right? It's Zillow's, what happens if I change the title? What happens if I change the header? And then finally I found out, we found out as a group of the retailers or the businesses, oh, this is how we can control the search engine. It's basically what we did there is we reverse engineer how it was working, try to find out what makes it, put it on top of the search engine, right? I don't think we haven't done that with any agents, because I don't see any agents yet, right now. So, but I also question about autonomy that we will be providing these agents. I'm not sure, we're ready. I don't know, maybe some of us are ready. Are we ready to give that autonomy for agents to go and buy the stuff or make those purchase decisions? Or are we going to be in this middle state where we have a human in the loop, where the agents are more like our personal assistant, where it provides what we should be buying, or brand information, maybe price comparison, kind of gives enough information for us to make the decision, right? So the reason I'm saying all these things is because we don't know what those evaluation is going to be. Based on the evaluations, we need to go and reverse engineer identify what makes my brand or my product shows up in the agentic search or the the LLM search.
So let's see. September 25 is when OpenAI announced their shopping potential platform and partnerships with like Shopify, Etsy, Walmart, and others. It's very rudimentary. Perplexity is also like PacSun is a brand. They just released on Perplexity a shopping experience, but everything's very rudimentary. So I think we're in the exploratory phase. It's all discovery. Everyone's kind of figuring out, seeing what it's like. And so we're in early stages. And I think, as people play around and brands play around, I think we're going to figure that out. In terms of stores or brands, will they continue to be in the picture? Yes, I believe some will. Why? Because Gen Alpha and Gen Z, if you look at the data on those generations, there is still a desire for something physical. And you will see for that generation right now, there's this movement towards very niche, knick-knacky, physical things, collectibles, hardback books, etc. Why? Because they grew up in a very different time, and so there's still this instance of wanting physical connection to a thing, like the mall. Have you shopping mall here is very busy, but there is this resurgence of younger generations going back into the mall because there's a social aspect to it, and getting together to shop. So I think there will be brands that will still want to deliver on experiences and this brand connection, and they'll use chat or agent shopping in a new way. And so we're in these early discovery. And then in terms of agents shopping, right? So it's the trust issue. I do think that if you think maybe today with certain brands where you have trust, you kind of have set a automatic resend me every 6 weeks. So we're okay with some of that once we have the trust. So I think with an agent, whether it's my agent I build or maybe it's the brand's agent or something, I think it's only a matter of time as long as we have trust about how they're using my information, who has access, et cetera. But I could see people, maybe particularly, goods that are like paper towels, the replenishables. I could see us going, oh, well, it's a low risk threshold. Sure, I'd probably be much more open to that. But I think it'll come. I think there'll be a moment where that's going to happen.
Almost feels like we've already handed over the product discovery, right? With search, you were already using something that was also AI, just not LLMs, to do your product discovery and search for products for you. With chatbots, I think we've gone a step forward where it's able to explain to us why it's giving us the recommendations. With agents, I think that level of trust grows one more level where now you let it handle your decisions too. Right? Like right now, it was just discovery. Would you talk about, Maria just mentioned OpenAI launched their agentic shopping in September, but they also rolled it back in March. So they've already learned in the process that retail and e-commerce is not as simple as just automating a bunch of feeds and letting people do the discovery and checkout and fulfillment. Are big beasts that they should let retailers handle. There's nuance to it. So retailers will continue to be merchants of record, even with agentic shopping. Well, I think OpenAI, ChatGPT or Gemini or agents are well set up right now to handle product discovery and go across all of the different information that we have and bring or surface the products. So brands will actually lose out if they decide to not participate in this through AEO, GEO, making their content more accessible and sitting out might be the bigger risk right now. So participate and see where this goes. While retailers are not going to go away anywhere. They did not go away with e-commerce. They did not go away with mobile apps. This could turn into a new channel, and agents will grow to have more autonomy, like Maria said, and it's just a matter of time. We just have to keep building the trust, putting the best experiences forward, and take a bet on AI.
I couldn't agree with the taking a bet on AI more. The companies that I'm seeing leaning into experimentation are scaling that much faster and seeing results that actually drive profit as opposed to just efficiencies. So I think that's a really good call out. If this is another channel that we're talking about, if you think about SEO, for the people that didn't lean into SEO at that time, they didn't take advantage of all of the early costs of things like books or some type of word that ended up being extremely expensive later on in the process. And so this is sort of a golden opportunity to have that experimentation, to pilot things now, and to try every single LLM. Not to lock in necessarily, because you want to make sure that all of your data is machine readable, that it's being surfaced the right way, that you have relationships with content platforms such as Reddit, for example, or even I was searching for ingredients for a barbecue that our family was hosting, and I got a ton of Good Housekeeping links. And so I was thinking, oh, well, those brands have been mentioned a lot in those, whether or not it's the Merediths of the world, there has to be a bigger view of where your content is going to be surfaced from. And it won't just be agents perusing your site and looking at your product detail pages. It's much, much bigger than that. So imagine the experimentation across that giant universe.
Makes
and
sense.
I think we also have signals today that, Adobe just put out a report that AI referred retail traffic was up almost 400%. And the same traffic is converting at a 40% higher rate. So like, Michelle said, this is valuable traffic that you're getting, higher intent, qualified traffic that you're getting from AI. So it totally makes sense to be present there and make the most of it. The direction is set. It's just a matter of time.
And to your point, I think authenticity is going to be the biggest driver of how people are interacting with brand. So there's going to be all of these opportunities that come up that result in a sea of sameness around how your brand shows up if you're using AI for every single thing. But 80% of the U.S. shoppers in the country are still going into the store. Only 20% of those sales are actually from e-commerce. And so it's still imperative, but just what you're doing in the store, how are you personalizing that experience? There's multiple brands now that are giving their frontline workers AI as well, so that you can have a personalized dialogue about the types of things that you've shopped for in the past. I keep going back to clothing because my favorite was Rent the Runway. But going back into the warehouse and picking out things that that customer is going to enjoy, being predictive around what it is that they're in the store for, knowing that they are, have a promo coming up. Those types of things also go back to the data, how you're starting to tie those different systems together so that you can have that experience in store.
Anything, Maria? Oh. Just, can you come back in just a second? I just have a couple more questions. So we're kind of touching on it a little bit, but one of the holy grails, if not the holy grail, around shopping has been traditionally the idea of unintentional discovery, right? So how do you think that will be done, right? The concept of maybe me having a virtual reality set, and then I can walk the aisles of virtual stores, et cetera, right? Or how will that be solved? Or how is it being solved?
The unintentional?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of feel like even if I were using chat to shop, most people aren't going to be super specific. They're probably going to describe, and what is served up is probably the primary thing that we think you're trying to describe, and probably complementary items that would go with those things. You know how like you prompt, serves you up, and then it asks you clarifying questions about, well, do you want this or this? Is it for vacation? Is it for, so I could see something like that happening.
But it's not very smooth, right? I mean, it's not as smooth as me walking into a store and I see stuff that I didn't know I wanted or needed, and I pick it up.
I think it depends on the shopper, and I think it depends on the product type you're shopping for. If you're someone that is, I'm pretty clear on what I need, what I want. I just need to get it at the best price or within the delivery window that I need. It could be amazing. Or versus if I want to peruse and I want to be inspired, then maybe the medium isn't the best. But I think it just depends on the person and the item.
I mean, I don't know if you're talking about impulse buys or unintentional buys, right? I didn't know, what's the difference, right? Because you go to Costco, they are pretty good at, rearranging the stuff so that you can make the impulse buys. I think the point that I'm going to make is, kind of we already solving or, working towards this on the personalization, recommendation emails. I think, she talked about, oh, do you mean this one, or do you want to add this information? I don't think that will not change with either agentic or chatbots or LLM, because they can still continue using the same capabilities that they have, and then recommend the items that then make it discoverable for them. And also, we'll continue mining the users, understand what their patterns are, what they'll be interested in, so then we can use that data and then use similar algorithms that what we are using, then bring that back. But I think the way that we will be bringing that would be different. Maybe we might not be sending the email because they're right there. So just show them, why don't you add this thing to your cart?
Being that it builds and it learns, I think the level of precision and maybe sophistication and what it serves up. So if I am always searching for an outfit and yes, I wanted shoes, it may get smarter and just automatically serve up the shoes because I have a pattern of that behavior of purchasing with them.
I just want to give, I told my wife, loves Temu, right? So she always tells me, it's I ended up buying, $100, $200. I ended up spending $300. I literally, they make it so much fun, and also it's they understand how they can get you buy more. So it's like they cracked it, man. That's why I really love that side. And yeah, I mean it's also fun, to shop.
Okay, I guess the drug's already made. So we'll change the order a little bit. So Lynn, go ahead and start off with a question.
Don't we have a Google? I think I tried, I don't know how good it was, but I don't know how good that was. I don't know if anybody here tried. It's kind of shows how it is. I don't think it's right now. It can tell you it's going to be a good fit or right. So I think that's much I know in this space.
I completely agree with you. Back at Amazon, I was working on this thing which, you could have a virtual model where you could try on clothes with. It's one of the hardest problems to solve because human bodies are so different from each other, and having a model kind of generalize it and make those small tweaks, it never really looks right.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same problem where even on the LLMs have solved the language situation, but when it comes to taking it into physical reality, or the world models that we talk about, where they're trying to make this thing where modeling human actions or robots, it's somewhere in the middle of that where you're trying to bring the physical reality and the actual products on top of it. So it's going to take some time to get finesse in that area. But simple things like I'll bring an example from the grocery space where take a picture of what's in your fridge and I'll tell you what to make, what more do you need so that you can have a complete meal in the next 2 days. Those types of things are probably already solved and we are able to like meet that need. Fitting clothes is a little bit different because how it's gonna, like, even if it tells you that this is gonna fit you, you might still end up having issues with it when you actually get the product.
Yeah. What
Yes.
when I was at Nordstrom, I worked on fit for a little bit, and it's really hard because not only do people's bodies change, but also when you are a multi-brand general merchandiser, every brand has a different fit spec, which makes it a really tough challenge. Plus, the other piece that we tested at one point, people were not comfortable putting their information into Nordstrom to try to like serve up a personalized. But I will say, one thing that brands are doing, there are some, and I was trying to think of which retailer this was, where you can put your picture in and do a general model like body in which you can see yourself, in the clothes. And I think it's kind of the good enough where brands are kind of at that space. But I get it from a fit and return. But this is why it's like for things like furniture and food, like low threshold.
I think that there are three things at least, like, the LLMs can't replace, right? Like smell and taste. How does it taste? Like touch, like, it's pretty good. Like, we still need to, depending on the humans, or at least go to the store and then, oh, how does this smell? Like, perfume you want to buy. Probably you might need to go to a store until we figure out a way.
Other questions? Peter.
I think, well, okay, I'll give the Intel comment, and then I also want to kind of address the at the edge, because what you were describing about, having the mirror or the device in your home that can measure, et cetera. I think people have tested those types of things. I think it still has a challenge around people's comfort and privacy of the data component. And then also, it reminds me of kind of like, our old school term of Internet of Things, right? So there is a cost, right? There's a cost involved in this, right? So when I talk about compute at the edge or edge AI, what we're looking at is right interaction with the customer and right device in which you can start moving more models or the powering of more workloads on that potential device to be able to give a quick, low latency response back in that scenario to serve the customer. And then if you take it to the physical store, it would be not only interaction on device, but within the four walls, how do you most efficiently use the compute wherever the models are because of latency, because of power and cost. And so all of those things have to come into play. So again, just because it's feasible, just because we technically can, doesn't mean it's viable, it's gonna make anybody money. Or that it's even desired in the marketplace, like enough people will want it or use it, or it solves a big enough problem for them. So I would say those are probably the inhibitors to the avatar piece or the device in home to measure.
Thank you for sharing the insights. I'd love to understand, like, the user journey. We touched on the payment part. How many of us think that Bitcoin will be the future of payment agents into the business?
Not many. I haven't heard about it, I guess. Go ahead, Jeff.
I have a question. You were talking about this. I've been doing a lot of like outdoor work and stuff, going to Home Depot, Lowe's, things like that. And you're talking about customer trusting the AI. When I'm at Lowe's, I might be buying something like a bunch of wood and stone for outdoor products. But I walk up to the register and I find know something like that about a customer, does that hurt the trust? Because you're like all of a sudden like, okay, you have a kid. How about this toy? How about this car? Does that hurt the trust, or does it make them feel more like, oh, this knows me?
I think it's a fine line between how you execute on the knowledge that you have about the customer. So if you're being really creepy and asking about it in terms of like, oh, do you have a kid and here's a recommendation, maybe not. But say, you're in an experience where you're, putting things into cart and there's just like a subtle, here's something to add to your cart too. Maybe you'll have the same experience that you have at the checkout counter at Lowe's. It's not necessarily trying to force something on you, but subtly introducing it into your customer experience. I think there's a fine line between doing it tactfully and trying to be in the face about it, or like not explain why you're being recommended something.
Just to clarify, are you talking about like you're in the physical store?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like to me, that's the art and science of retail. Those are called like gravity bowls. And so they're the gum or merchandise or whatever, the grab and go that's like really low threshold, but most people would probably need it. And so that to me is just old fashioned retailing, putting those types of little small incremental, shoppable pieces in a place where you're going to go and check out, and probably figuring that it's toys is just based on the demographic of who shops in their stores. But I chalk that up to not AI, more of just good old-fashioned retailing.
Yeah, but with AI, we can actually be more precise. And like one day you see toys, the next day you're going to see something that you're more likely to buy that day. AI is smart enough to know what you're most likely to buy, so they're going to keep recommending different things. So with physical, I think we have that limitation of like the store's got its layout and this is what it's going to be on a certain week. But with AI in your digital experiences, it's going to be a different thing each time.
Robert?
I'm going to build on that. I'm interested in the points that were made earlier about personalization. Where do you see the weight of that personalization falling in an agent-based world? Is it leveled more between the customer and the agent? I've seen some people argue that's where that real personalization is going to coalesce, and there'll be a large corpus of personalized information between the customer and their agent pool. And they will be very stingy in doling that out to retailers to fulfill a very specific request. I don't know, I'm curious where you guys see that personalization dynamic.
I think it's going to start there first, only because it's easier for me as a user to make a decision on how I want to build my agent and what I want my agent to do. So I'm just going off of, it, at a personal level, I think it will be easier. I don't know. I think it may shift the dynamics, but I definitely think it's putting it out there where it's becoming much more of in the shopper's hand versus on the brand's hand. But to the point Richa made earlier about can it be detectable or read by an agent, that's where I think it becomes really interesting for the brand.
I think it's going to be a two-way as well, right? Like, because customers will be using multiple agents. So the agents will have its own data about context about the data. But a store, like they might be getting the same customer from multiple agents. So then they have a different level of customer data, right? So I think in this world, agent can say, it's like, okay, I have this customer. Do you want to recommend anything from your side? So probably able to do a two-way data sharing or communication between the systems and say, okay, what do you recommend versus what am I recommend? I think that kind of ecosystem will build, and that way, the customer will be able to see both recommendations from the agent itself and as well as the stores that they might be looking at the items.
Yeah, I want to add on to what Srinivas is saying here. I think it is agentic commerce is all about negotiation. So it's between your agent and then the retail commerce agent that negotiation is going to happen between. And it's also a context handoff almost. So you might have given a lot of context to your own agents and they know a lot about you. But then unless you share the relevant context with the retailer is not going to be able to service your request the best. Plus, they also have a lot of context about you because you've shopped with them before. and they are able to bring something to the table. So I think it's both a context handoff process and a negotiation process. But I think the difference is going to be that the agent is working on your behalf, whereas brands were probably, looking out for their own interests as well in the mix. So the balance is going to shift a little bit to the consumer if you're able to write your own agent.
There's a huge need for data enrichment, especially in the consumer goods space as well, so that you can have these more personalized dialogues and conversations. Because if you now imagine that you're a consumer goods brand, you're going to have to figure out what your agentic commerce strategy is to not only be served through the Safeway agent, but also to be served through the Walmart agent, to be served through, name your own agent. And whatever LLM. So it's sort of harnessing what it is that you need to know about your customer, where your gaps are, and creating that that universe of data that you need in order to make those more predictive decisions around personalization. And just to bring it back to the other question around whether or not, there's a fine line between personalization and creepy. And every single marketer has had to have that question. I think that as we pivot more and more towards influencer marketing and different types of channels that you can have more personalized dialogues, and those are expected, I think that we'll learn a lot from any type of conversational data that you can capture about how your the people that shop for your brand or shop through your brand are really communicating in this new world. So whether or not that's also going to social channels and better understanding what's happening in terms of dialogues that are happening on Instagram, there's lots of data to pull from, especially from a consumer goods standpoint, because that's a fear in the consumer goods world as well. Okay, if I'm already gated by data from my retailers, then how exactly am I going to get past that and the LLMs and the agents?
Thank you. Looks like we're all talking a lot about personalization, agentic shopping. We can probably keep going for a while, but I think I saw a couple more hands, so we'll do a couple more questions, and then I want to have some closing thoughts from you, and then we'll wrap it up. So I think, Roger, your hand was up. What will exist that doesn't exist today?
I think there'll be more options of choice out there for shoppers within a commerce environment, shopping for whether it's clothing or goods. And I say this because, I think when we talked, for those of us, wasn't that all too far ago, over a decade, around cloud. And we said as cloud comes in, it's going to be this great equalizer, right? All this data everyone's going to have. I still think with AI and where it's headed, agentic and agents, again, it's going to continue to be this great equalizer. And you're going to have people that have really amazing ideas, that are really creative, that can go tackle a new business and go deliver a service or good out to many people, and do it probably within the fraction of what it takes for some of these really large brands to do it, because they will have figured out that structure between agents, managing agents, and where the human side comes in with the agent side. And I think that's really exciting. I looked at that for the next generation of, shoppers, but also for those like in Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and these creative ideas they may have, and what could they serve up new in a new way, but do that themselves. I think that's going to be really cool to see to happen. And so I just think that just creates more opportunity and more choice for all of us as consumers.
I don't know if it is possible in 2030, but I think there will be multiple agents that will be managing your scheduling. So it knows where you're going, where you're vacationing, agents that manage your pantry, what you need to, what you need to cook, what do you need to buy, right? So I'm assuming that all these agents talking to each other, communicating with each other, probably delivering what groceries that you need for that week, what you need to cook, right? So where you're going, what you need to buy. Probably most of those things could be automated and then delivering directly to you. And if you don't like it, I mean, there's always be free return policy, right? You can go and send it to Buy Wander. We will take them and resell them, right? So I think that's could be that is possible. We are our life is managed by multiple agents which are talking to each other, making the decisions for us automatically. They are delivering to our storefront. It is possible.
You're making it sound scary, as if I will have no purpose in life. The agent's running my life now.
We already seen
Yeah.
some of them. It's
Yeah.
happening. How much code am I writing right now?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was going to be my answer to you. You only have to think about it, and AI and agents will actually take the overwhelm out of the shopping that it is today. Even if you're able to achieve that, that would be a win by 2030. It doesn't have to be anything breakthrough. Just take the overwhelm out of it. Stuff that I don't like doing, admin stuff about shopping, just take that out. Keep the fun stuff, but just take the chore out of it.
I think there's going to be a really interesting shift that we see as memory gets better and better as well. So once an LLM or any LLM is really able to understand the entire context of me, I went into Claude the other day and asked them what they knew about me. I guess we're using them. I don't know, it. Asked it what it knew about me, and it didn't know that much, actually. But then the next time that I logged into Claude, it was asking for my permission to have more memory into our experience. And so I also, I don't know how that will evolve, but if it's that personalized, that it starts to really understand the context of where I am on a daily basis because I'm using it that much, I think that personalization will be untouchable. It's going to be I can't even imagine.
I want to tell you a scary story, right? My wife uses a Claude or Gemini, one of them more. I asked how much it knows. So she asked question, right? So tell me about self. She said you're typically this age. You got 2 kids, 2 girls. One of them is getting your birthday soon. I was how did it know? Basically, she started asking she's planning for birthday parties, creating content from that. So it was pretty scary to me. It's I was telling her I don't know what information you're giving. Please make sure that you don't give any PII data, personal information.
This sounds like the algorithm.
It is pretty scary.
We finally discovered the algorithm to create the perfect husband. So shopping may or may not have anything to do with it.
And perfect therapists too.
Yeah, unfortunately. So just a couple of quick ones. So I think, Kamal, you had one? Yeah, there's one in the back too.
I think my observation is that AI has so far not delighted the shopper. Most shoppers, okay, these can do this, but not happy. And shopping is a very broad area. Everyday shopping like groceries, once in 10, 15 years at least, home remodeling, or somewhere in between where you are buying travel with your friends and family. Which area do you think will be the first one to delight shoppers? Oh, I'm going to go there. Will it be groceries, travel, or is it?
I have to say, I kind of disagree because I have been absolutely delighted in using LLMs for travel, in particular, and meal planning. Those ones have been an absolute delight. And then fill my cart from there, and not having to actually go and select things, delightful. I do think travel. I think that we saw travel as an early use case for why people were delighted by this solution because it's so difficult. There's so many options and that's a lot of research. And so you take any one of those, more ambiguous kinds of tasks where you're not necessarily an expert, and instead of having to scroll through page after page, you can just get 3 to 5 different. I think that That habit, actually, when you're asking about what the future of shopping is going to look like, it will have to be some type of selection process. I don't think that we'll be able to, in retail and consumer goods, give the breadth of, the store that we do today, because that no one wants a list of 100 things and have to go below the fold to get them all.
I mean, shopping for some people is a hobby, right? But it wasn't a hobby for everybody.
I was going to say,
So
do you
those
like
people are gonna
shopping?
yeah, those people are never going to be delighted.
Exactly.
Probably, right? People who don't like shopping. There's
Like
gonna be no-
how much of a pain do you feel from that process? You'll feel delighted only if you feel the pain today and something takes away that pain. So if you don't feel the pain, you're not going to feel the delight.
So last question, I think you had.
I have a little different question. So, in terms of experience, sometimes there are times when we return things, right? And there's like a voice that says, "Hey, you want to return? Give me the reason." And sometimes those are not the reasons that I want to, I want to select. And then there's a loop of call, and it'll go for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So that's also an experience, right? With agents, how do you see that is? Because I feel the more we are removing the personal touch or the actual person, there would be that frustration between human and the agent, be it via a human created agent or via the retail market created agent. But what are your thoughts on that?
Are you talking to agents at all, or are you typing?
Like, do you even know these days whether you're talking to an agent or not?
Oh no, I meant actually talking. So I find prompting now to be somewhat time consuming. And so that's another habit that I think is really interesting, is once you're able to get these agents, brand agents, whatever they may be, on top of your website, and you're able to have that dialogue via voice, so people can do it on the go and have that's another early use case that I've seen in customer service in particular, because no one's going to get mad at you. No one's having a bad day in customer service when you're talking to an agent that sounds exactly like your brand, that doesn't look through a binder, that knows all of the information. It's just I feel like that's another area of delight.
And I think that was also one of the first applications of agents and AIs was customer service.
Yeah.
Like there's like the Sierras of the world, or like the Salesforce, like all of them have adopted AI and have put agents out there. Like they are able to run through all of the information that's in so many different places about products and services and refunds and policies, and they're probably able to help you much better. So I'm hoping that 30-minute scenario is a goes away when we have agents. And a lot of brands are already adopting AI voice agents, which will talk to you, and you will not even be able to tell that it's an actual agent.
I feel the example that you're listing on the return, where like select, right, is a very early bot example, because they're trying to, whatever they're trying to serve you up is because they're trying to understand how to disposition, right, your information to get you to the right thing. But in the newer versions, where you see it being much more of a Gen AI interface, where it's more free flow, and on the back end, they're able to sort through that data, parse it quickly to determine kind of the next action to ask you. I think that's the more modern application that we'll continue to see. I think the example you gave to me is like an early chatbot version.
And if I can add one more thing.
Just one.
Just one more thing. I promise. What's also interesting about how this technology is evolving is that it can actually track whether or not you're frustrated. It can detect frustration. It can be more empathetic. It can switch its strategy with you. And so that also is a massive difference between chatbots of the past.
Thank you for that, because I think, Kamal, you need to talk to more agents. Then they'll delight you once they figure out you're not delighted today. So. They all need to talk to more agents. They all need to talk to more agents, or they need to talk more to agents. We can keep going for a while. I'll give everybody literally 30 seconds or so to just some closing thoughts. But it looks like, shopping's evolving rapidly. Agentic shopping's coming or happening, right? And in the ideal case scenario, we'll be able to outsource everything we hate, keep the stuff that we love, right? Do more of the stuff that we love, save money in the process, hopefully, right? And then you can just enjoy shopping, and if you don't like what you see, Bywander will take care of it.
We'll take them. We'll take them at research.
Yeah. So, but go ahead, each of you start.
I think the agents are coming. They're not going anywhere. So I think we all, as e-commerce business or anything that we are selling, we need to know how to adapt. As somebody said, like, it's a different channel. Like, let's start there. If we are not adapting to this one as we are merchants or like brands, then we'll become obsolete. So I think it's super important. Saying that one, I think a couple of things that I would like to add is one is the privacy is going to become super important to know how that is going to be solved. I think we just need to, something that people will be worried about it because like it has a lot more information than before, where I need to mine millions of rows to find what the user is. Right now, they'll be able to tell it looking at like a couple of conversations. So I think that will be another big thing that as like developers or people who are like building agents should be monitoring or watching out what we should do in that.
Yeah, just to round out, I think search and chatbots are not going away anywhere when it comes to retail experiences. I feel like agentic shopping is going to be where customers delegate some of the responsibility to agents and do some of their bidding for them in the long run. But as from a product perspective and as a business or strategy, I think being present in this ecosystem, being visible, not sitting this one out is what I would say everybody should take away. Lean into it, see how it can be of most, how it applies to your business, and try starting off with low autonomy things where humans are like a lot in the loop, small things like product recommendations, getting them right, and then slowly progressing through the level of autonomy, and then letting, you will get to a stage where it gets almost autonomous, if not everything, because humans always will want control. Like it's very hard to think today that humans are going to give their credit cards away. They will always have guardrails around it. Some shape or form of control will always exist, but start with a low level of autonomy and graduate your way up the ladder. And e-commerce has evolved from the days of physical retail to e-commerce to app, and it'll ride this wave too and come out on the top.
I like that optimism. That was good. My big takeaway, other than also lean in, would be that you want to start skilling your teams now too. So not just for as many of you who may have teams, skilling is just as important as figuring out your AI strategy. And so you don't want to end up with a ton of licenses and being able, to build this AI strategy and leave your people behind. Any investment that you make in your people learning this technology at this point is literally an investment in their entire career. And it's an investment in your career too. So I see a lot of lack of effort around skilling, but making it a top-down initiative, having a AI center of excellence, ensure that there is governance across the agents that you're building and that there's consistency. I think that those things are really key. Skilling, governance, consistency, AI center of excellence.
For those of you that are looking to bring in these new experiences with AI, what I would just say is AI is not a feature. AI is a organizational capability, which means that as you bring in new applications, you need to get down all the way down into your operating model, all the way below the application layer, to really utilize AI's capability. What that should look like in practice once you get there is ultimate decision and action dexterity within the organization. But the biggest barrier to address is the trust inside the organization. People have to have trust with what they're seeing and putting in. The organization has to trust the output for that to happen. So to me, those are some of the biggest pieces out in front of us that are going to determine the level of change leadership that's going to be required for adoption.
Thank you so much. So it looks like be careful of privacy, lean in, and then skilling, right? And then building or continuing to grow trust. So,
And use it yourself. Actually, I ask a lot of people that I meet, have you actually purchased anything through an LLM? And I still haven't gotten one person's hand raised. And nope, we get one.
So, well, thank you so much. But yeah, it's been wonderful. So I know all of you are very busy. I think Srinivas has to take off to catch a flight in some time. But yeah, Ruchi and Taryn and Cece and a bunch of team members, Lan, a little bit myself, we put in a lot of work, but also the panelists generously made themselves available for this great discussion. And thanks to all of you for showing up for this. But just a round of applause for the panelists, and then we'll have a...
Thank you.